Hello, boys and girls. Gather round, sit around the campfire. Today, we're going to be looking at yet another story full of the usual BS. Now, these type of stories happen in a myriad of different fields, whether it be healthcare, whether it be social work, restaurant work, what have you. It's not necessarily where it's happening. In this case, it is the Georgia football NCAA team. This could be happening anywhere. And the same story and the same rhetoric would be repeated regardless. There's a high vaccination rate, yet and still there's a high COVID rate. I could have sworn that earlier this year that the efficacy rates of these vaccines were well into the upper 90%. 96, 97, 99% around that regime. And they keep going back to that same story and modifying it lower and lower and lower until the point to where midsummer of this year, they just stated that it's not to prevent you from getting and carrying the virus. It is to lessen the impact of the symptoms that you feel. Wow. I know you guys see this at this point. This is just to stoke fear. It has to be. Right now, they are in talks in getting a third vaccine shot out. They're continuing this incestuous relationship between the government and the pharmaceutical industry, and they expect us to just sit down, bend over a barrel, and just take it over and over and over and over and over again with no consent. Now, I know those people who are pro-vaccine will say, well, they were too close in contact, but they're playing football. They're not socially distant. They're not wearing their mask. Fuck out of here, dude. Just stop it. Just stop it. That rhetoric is absolutely terrible at this point. I used to believe in my heart of hearts that the entire reason for vaccines were to prevent the spread of the virus, until last year when I actually had COVID and was asymptomatic. I tested positive for COVID on 3 different occasions in a 1-week period, so I self-isolated for 14 days. Yet and still, even though I had the antibodies within my body, even though I had a natural response that prevented me from being sick, I still had to get the vaccine. How does that make sense? Seriously. Now, look, I know I may be a conspiracy theorist, but please, just level with me. If you are a child back in the day and your parents put you around other children who had chickenpox and you contracted the chickenpox, doesn't that mean you have built up a natural immunity to catching chickenpox in the future? Maybe I'm just preaching to the wrong choir. You guys already know what I'm talking about. So I'm not going to go off on a tangent like I usually do in my videos. Let's get back to this. The Bulldogs are experiencing the highest spike of COVID, despite 90% being vaccinated. I thought all college students had to be vaccinated. That's what they told me up here in the beautiful North. But let's just go through the story real quick. I'm not really going to insult your intelligence by reading line for line. I will link the story in the description so you can read it at your leisure. But we'll just go, maybe hit the high points. I didn't highlight anything. I just read through it briefly before I started this video. Oh, they're going to start their first home game, blah, blah, blah. I'm concerned as I have ever been because we have 3 or 4 guys with COVID and a couple of staff members who have been out with COVID here recently. Okay. Let me just ask you this. Now, story aside, we're going to delve into the conspiracy aspect of it. Now, it's very easy to digest what the story is stating, but let's look at it from a conspiratorial aspect. The majority of the restrictions that have been proposed and imposed on the people of the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, France, Spain, England, these type of places have been on things where individuals of the working class or the proletariat, however you want to refer to it as, They have been imposed on the leisure aspect of our lives. Think about it. You need for New York City, for instance, you need a vaccine passport in order to go into restaurants and shop, both leisure activities where you are spending your money on things that you actually want to do. However, when you want to go to work, all you have to do is just show up, show that you've been vaccinated, and you can continue to work and can continue to make these companies these extremely large profits. Now, I have no problem with companies making money because it ultimately benefits both the company and the people who work there. However, when you start to break down, when you start to bring your iron fist, your death grip around the things that I love so dearly, what they did to the NBA was nothing short of molestation. When they continue to do this, they're continually isolating us from each other. They're getting rid of the community. For instance, in Australia, they state that you can only go outside for 1 hour. You cannot start an uprising in 1 hour. You cannot form a rally in 1 hour. You cannot get and gather resources in 1 hour. Think about it. They are going to get to the point to where they're going to be treating us like inmates in solitary confinement, where we have 1 hour of whatever we got to do, and then the rest of the time we owe it to our government. How much longer are we going to put up with this bullshit? And I know a lot of people are going to write me off, downvote this video, but in a year's time, if we are at the same point to where I see all of these other quote unquote democratic societies falling into, if we are like that here in the great United States, then I promise you, nobody's going to do anything. They are slowly drip feeding. They are giving us an IV full of the bullshit so that we can slowly become accustomed to the amount of bullshit wading through our system until the point to where anybody who disagrees with the mainstream is a heretic and will be burnt at the stake. The figurative stake, which in this case would be banning from Twitter, maybe banning from the internet, maybe not allowing you to bank at certain institutions. This is ridiculous, and you guys know that it's ridiculous. This is not just about the story, it's about what is happening on a large scale. First it's the football, then it's the soccer, then it's the concerts, then it is meeting up with people in person, then it's the coffee shops, then it is the schools. Once again, we're going to be doing distance learning here soon. They're saying Delta is the biggest threat to humanity since the Spanish flu and the Black Plague. Yet and still, I know multiple people who caught it, and guess what? They survived. But we're not going to get into that. I just want to bring this story to you guys' attention because I want you to think about what is happening on a large scale. Not necessarily the intricacies of this story, but what is happening on a large scale, and what type of programming do you think that these institutions are trying to implement with this type of wording, with this type of story. And when you start to think about it, you will come over to my side of being a conspiratorialist. But I don't want to joke around about such serious matters, so I'm going to leave you guys with the story. The link is in the description. Please like and subscribe. If not, downvote, comment why I'm retarded, and that will help drive up the engagement on the channel. Either way, I appreciate you. Have a good day. Stay blessed. Peace.